Inclusive interviewing. Do you want to hire talent, transform your organization, be competitive? Accomplish these goals and more by extending your potential talent pool to include people who are experiencing disability. How you conduct your interviews matter. Removing barriers and biases matters. Let's re-engineer your interview process. Module outcomes. In this module, we'll define and explain the value of inclusive interviewing, summarize best practices for inclusive hiring, and produce a policy for inclusive interviewing. People who are experiencing a disability are often overlooked by employers. They can be seen as a liability. Interactions are awkward. Accommodations are not offered. Employers think it's easier to hire people who fit within existing culture. People with diverse abilities don't always fit the mold. Rationale. People who are experiencing disability make up a substantial talent pool. They are creative, innovative, and motivated. A diverse workforce makes your culture evolve and thrive. Knowing how to incorporate inclusive practices in your job interviews creates opportunities. It ensures equitable access for new hires, alleviates awkward situations, and meets legislative requirements. Inclusion means equal access to opportunities and resources for everyone. In an inclusive workplace, all cultures, ethnicities, races, genders, ages, religions, sexual orientations, languages, and abilities are welcomed and paid equitably. Inclusive interviewing is about designing an interview that removes barriers and biases in the interview and selection process. Inclusive interview techniques build stronger teams. Before your interview, review your existing interview practices. Educate your staff on inclusive interviewing. Select interview candidates from a diverse talent pool. Ask candidates if they require any accommodations, but do not ask or infer if they are experiencing disability. Disability etiquette is important. When the time comes, hold interviews in an accessible space and/or use accessible software tools. Select a co-interviewer with a different cross-cultural perspective than your own. Use clear descriptive instructions, especially with locations and directions. Ask open-ended, flexible questions related to abilities and not limitations. For example, do not be overly expressive or raise your voice, as this can impact a person's ability to read lips. Offer assistance and wait for a response. Make sure your candidate has ample space, especially if they are in a wheelchair. Remember, the wheelchair is part of their space. Be at eye level. Permit a support person and do not touch service dogs. Creating an inclusive interview checklist helps. An inclusive interviewing policy sets the tone for all staff. It needs to reflect relevant legislation, human rights requirements, and your organization's rules for hiring and recruiting. Start by reviewing your current practices. Identify any challenges and state the changes you need to make. Your policy should clearly state its purpose, who is responsible for administering the policy, and its effective date. Include a list of procedures that you want your employees to take. Don't forget to add your policy to your larger hiring and recruitment policy. An inclusive policy might read, when contacted for an interview, job applicants will be advised that your company has an accommodation policy and asked whether the applicant requires accommodation to participate in the hiring process. Your company will evaluate the job applicant's request for accommodation and may request more information from the applicant to facilitate the accommodation. If a request for accommodation is denied, the reasons why will be clearly communicated to the job applicant. After creating your policy, communicate it to your company and provide staff training. Summary. Inclusive interviewing identifies and removes barriers and biases. Best practices for inclusive interviewing include evaluating existing processes, selecting from a diverse talent pool, providing accommodations, being aware of communication habits, providing space, and asking questions about abilities, not limits. Creating an inclusive interview policy requires you to analyze your workplace and identify the challenges you face and any relevant laws. You must delegate someone to administer and implement the policy. In the toolkit, you'll find more information, examples, and templates to help you create an inclusive interview policy that works. So get started!